The key to becoming a conscious creator is to learn how to master the mind so that the mind does not become a master of you. I remember early on in my spiritual awakening journey, I was a huge sponge for all things mind. I was looking up all the biohacks and all of the mind hacks. I really wanted to learn how to use and manipulate this amazing tool that we have to my advantage, to be able to create the life of my dreams. And it turns out there is a link between the mind and consciously creating the life of your dreams. Bruce Lipton taught me a lot about this topic. I highly recommend you check him out. There's also, of course, Joe Dispenza and Carl Jung, but particularly with this focus, it was Bruce Lipton that brought forward all this, and he's also deep into the science and research. You know, I love that kind of stuff. So I just loved the perspective that he brought to the table about this very thing. And it's that I had no idea prior to that about 90% of our lives was living from programming, from the tapes in our subterranean levels of our mind, the unconscious and subconscious areas. Some experts say just subconscious, but in my opinion, I'm just going to say unconscious and subconscious as well. That leaves really only about 5 to 10% of the day in that conscious awareness to shift out of the car being an autopilot to being able to sit in the driver's seat and direct that car. That is not a lot at all. But we're going to break down exactly how the mind works so that you have a better understanding of how to better utilize this tool to your advantage. It is crucial to learn about what exists in these subterranean levels if you do not know already. Another quick story I want to tell you is when I was first launching my coaching business, this was the COVID era. So I want you to keep in mind that there were a lot of people awakening at that time. And I don't think they drew the connection here because I created a beautiful course that I called Conscious Healing. It was all about how bring stuff from the unconscious and unconscious to light or to consciousness. Light and consciousness are pretty synonymous in some contexts, or like, you know how you shine the light on something, it's in the dark before. This is the dark areas, this is the light, the conscious area of the mind. So anyway, it was all about becoming aware of that which you need to heal to overcome for that transformation that you're looking for. For example, some people were looking for increase of abundance. Some people were looking for more love in their life. Some people wanted to level up in their relationships. Whatever that personal transformation that they were looking for to achieve, I urged and made a case to them to dive into the subconscious and unconscious areas of their brain, of their mind, because there's the nugget. That's the core reason. You can't just treat the symptoms. You have to get to the core. But sadly, I feel like it just really fell on deaf ears at the time. And instead, the course wasn't as big of a hit as I thought it would be. It definitely packs in a lot of value. And you do need to know this stuff. It is fundamental for any level of transformation. But I don't think at the time people were able to appreciate it. But I think it's a little bit more prevalent now. If you're not aware of how the mind works and of these insights, then definitely stick with me through the end so you understand why it's so crucial. But at that time, people were buying into other courses like business courses, how to make 10K figures a month. And while that's really alluring, and I'm sure they have a wonderful framework of getting you there, at the end of the day, you can only go as far as your self-concept allows. If you have other like ancestral blocks or other subconscious beliefs about how you get there, you're not going to get the intended results, no matter how big, fancy, and expensive or results-driven the course is, unless they do hit on healing. Yeah, so I just wanted to preview that for a quick second. Let's talk about how this mind works. It's amazing, by the way, but being able to be in this upper quadrant, this tiny, tiny, tiny little space up here is where you want to be at. This red line right here marks the level of awareness, okay? We have three different levels to the mind. Now this is more conceptual. We are talking about the conscious area of the mind, which is going to be awareness, mindfulness, and then there is the unconscious area of the mind and subconscious. It's not like there's a perfect, third split division or anything, but speaking to this just conceptually, you can bank on the fact that 90% of your life has been programmed into you, whether you consented to that or not. And that is the key wisdom here, if you haven't heard that before. I also implore you to check out all of Bruce Lipton's videos. He dives deep into this topic, and I binge watched that for so long. I think he also has meditations. I used to do sleep meditations to reprogram my subconscious during that time as well. All these are great tools, and I'll explain why you need to do that. So in the unconscious, we have, have you ever heard of like unconscious bias, where you may have certain thoughts or beliefs or even prejudices towards a certain situation, or could even be directed at other people? We all have them. We all have them. This is where they're stored. The unconscious can also be behavioral patterns that play out that we may not be aware of. Now, conscious obviously means like aware. You're conscious of the thing. Unconscious simply means not aware. There's nothing else fancy to it other than that. Just so with this red line being the line of awareness, everything below this is in the dark. Like you don't know where it's coming from until you use a modality, a practice, until you intentionally tunnel in to get that information. Okay, and then we have our subconscious. That's the third area of the brain, or not brain, the mind. The subconscious has all of the tapes, all the programming. This is gonna definitely date me a little bit, but I remember growing up, there were VCR tapes. This is where the term kind of comes from. You can record onto that, and there's like this tape that can store information. It's obviously been around for even decades before that, but using that analogy, it's like something has been recorded onto the tape, and then that gets like film too, like cinemas, that gets recorded onto the tape, okay, and then it gets stored. You have a huge storehouse in your subconscious of all of the programming that you received. This includes when you were a child between the ages of 0 to 6. You're basically in this theta mode, in this theta state of mind. The brain waves are much more open, and they're in the process, or their whole function is to take in that information and record it onto these tapes to then get stored. I truly believe that this was a way of being able to receive culture and learn how to be human from our elders and parents and the people around us in our communities. But unfortunately, sometimes some things can go awry in that process, or you're brought up in an environment that may not be as positive as the life that you would have wanted to live, or the life that you would have wanted to lead. But do not fret, because the reason why we are learning how to master the mind is because the entire human experience is malleable. Another quick sidebar: when I was going through this like massive, I guess, activation period during 2020, I was receiving a lot of downloads, a lot of stuff from my spiritual toolbox. If you haven't checked that out, it's a whole series I do about sharing mindfulness hacks and tools. And I also remember receiving little nuggets of wisdom, like higher wisdom. It seemed to just kind of drop into me, and I don't know if I could claim it as my own. It wasn't like I learned from this experience and now this is my nugget of wisdom, but I just remember it's always in the most subtle times, like when you're in the shower or doing dishes. So unfortunately, it's not this really cool story, but nonetheless, I remember explicitly, I was standing there just getting ready in front of the mirror. And I remember hearing the entire experience, the entire human experience is malleable. And what that means is it's like clay. If you don't like the way your life is going, or you don't like certain aspects of your life, you can tweak them. There are ways. It may take time, it may take practice, it does take ardent effort, but there is possibility of completely shape-shifting it. We are shapeshifters, kind of, in a way. So do not fret if there is some programming that you didn't want in there. I really wish there was a way we could just open up the mind, kind of like peer in there and see what is all in there lurking in the shadows that you may not want there anymore. But that's also why triggers come up for us, to show us that exists in there, and we have that opportunity at that point to reprogram, to heal, to overcome it, and replace it with something new. So the subconscious is all about programming. It has those tapes in it. We talked about the childhood theta state of when it was getting programmed. The theta state, the reason why I emphasize that quite a bit is because that state of brainwave frequency is when you can reprogram your mind. I've been under hypnosis before to reprogram. Like, I think it's kind of prevalent. They used to do a lot of, I don't know if they still do it, but the quitting smoking hypnosis. The hypnotist would bring up people on the stage and like they can help you shift your habits, your bad habits. That's where that comes from. And then there's also I wrote blueprints for life because beyond just the programming about what life is and how to human that we learn as we were in those first 6 years of our lives, we also sort of get the blueprints for what does marriage look like? What does partnership look like? What do friendships look like? What is our concept of love, and how do we feel validated? Are you worthy of success? I remember growing up in my childhood in lower middle class, there was always this belief reinforced around me that we had to like deny gifts for some reason. I remember getting something from my grandma or something, and my mom was like, oh no, that's too much. She doesn't need all that. She cock-blocked me from abundance. Like, what is that? I would also repeatedly watch her turn down money. Oh no, that's too much. You keep that money. I mean, it's nice, noble choice to to not receive that gift, but it taught me something about worthiness that I do not agree with in my adult life. But regardless of what new perspectives we shift into and new beliefs we think we're conscious of, like, oh, at that time I was like, I definitely believe I'm abundant and I have access to abundance and I can manifest my dreams. But then I always kept getting stuck. My life would still not play out in front of me the way I wanted it to because of all this other 90% of junk that was kind of creating the blocks, no matter what I did to try to think it away or love and light it away. It's these pesky things in the darkness that we have to shine a light on, become aware of in order to shift out of. That's kind of the high level. Again, I told you this was just going to be the simplified version, but knowing how the mind works is crucial because it's 100% necessary for the healing process, especially emotional healing. The unconscious is where our traumas are stored. The unconscious is also where some of our autonomous bodily functions happen in that level of the mind. But I wanted to go back to how our traumas are stored and are going to create, they're going to create and inform behavioral patterns that we will get stuck in a vicious cycle of until we break free of that trauma. So it is crucial for healing. It is crucial for you to understand how the reprogramming works and how you're rewriting those tapes in order to create the life that you want. Now, this isn't a deep dive in how to reprogram your mind exactly. There's so many different techniques, approaches, practices, and modalities that you can tap into. The world is aplenty of that, fortunately. But first, you have to become aware of how the mind works in order to know how to approach the solution, right? And that leads me to a transformation. It is fundamental to know how to master the mind in order to get the transformation that you are looking for, looking to achieve, looking to experience. I've even gone through personal identity transformations, even as of recently. And it's like the gateway of every transformation always involves healing and reprogramming to get the transformation I want in my life, to get the manifestations of the things that I want. I hope you see the connection, the relationship there, because it's the only way to that outcome. Like I said, when I was going about this journey, I had a vision of what I wanted to be, what I wanted to experience, and the life that I wanted. But no matter how much I tried to effort in that area, things would just fall away. For example, even though I would push really hard and do all my mindfulness and love and light and like do all the abundance activations, I still would find myself experiencing contracts like dissolving all of a sudden or roadblocks still being presented because I still didn't match that frequency in order to receive it. I still held densities of programs, of thoughts, of beliefs, of traumas that held me in a lower vibration, so to speak. Now, we're just using this as a conceptual scale because let's not get into like the finite details there, but for the sake of being figurative, I could not get past that. I had to dive into the subterranean levels, into the darkness to reconstruct, create the life that I want. I went from unconscious creator in my life where I was just letting autopilot. Oh my gosh, I remember a time way back when, it almost feels like another lifetime altogether, that I, probably pre-awakening, that I just allowed life to kind of happen to me. And that was not always the prettiest, not always going on the trajectory or navigating in the directions that I wanted. And I just kind of accepted less than because I just threw up my hands and said, well, that's how life is, because I also received that programming from the people and the relatives and the family lineage that I had come from. They have that core belief. And I realized that was given unto me as well. So I went from unconscious creator to conscious creator. And then when I really started to master the mind and understand that the gateway access to creating the life of my dreams always had to do with these three things: the healing, reprogramming, to get to the transformation, to get to the manifestation. I went all the way up to empowered conscious creator. And I hope that this helps you become a conscious creator as well. Please let me know in the comments below. Drop me a brain emoji if this gave you any aha moments. I thank you so much for your support in my channel. It means a lot, and it makes all the world difference when you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Much love.